Welcome, and may God bless your day and your week. We're just so thrilled to have you joining us for today's deep dive.
Absolutely.
And, if you've ever thought ancient texts were just these sanitized, straightforward fables where the good guys wear white hats and the bad guys get what's coming to them, well, buckle up.
Yeah, you are in for a ride today.
Because today we have a mission. We're taking a massive magnifying glass to Genesis chapter 38.
A very intense chapter.
It really is. We're drawing on some incredible historical insights today, specifically pulling from the Holman and NAA Study Bibles to really extract the real aha moments of this text.
Right, because there is so much beneath the surface.
Exactly. We want to untangle the intense cultural history of the ancient Near East and discover why this truly jarring, totally scandalous story is actually a massive turning point in human history.
And we're going to bypass all that heavy academic jargon to do it.
Right. So you can walk away with a totally new perspective on a text you probably thought you knew.
Because it really is, it's one of the most structurally jarring chapters in ancient literature.
It just comes out of nowhere.
It really does. I mean, you're reading through the book of Genesis, right? And you've just started this sweeping, epic narrative of Joseph.
The coat of many colors, the dream.
Exactly. He's been thrown into a pit. He's sold into slavery in Egypt by his own brothers. The tension is incredibly high.
You're on the edge of your seat.
Right. You turn the page expecting to follow Joseph down into Egypt to see what happens to him in Potiphar's house. But suddenly, the narrative just stops.
It's whiplash.
Complete whiplash.
Yeah.
The camera violently pans away from Egypt, and we are thrust into this dark, messy, morally complex detour about Joseph's older brother, Judah.
And his daughter-in-law, Tamar.
Yes, it's this sudden story involving deception, prostitution, hypocrisy, and a literal life or death court case.
Okay, let's unpack this, because setting the scene here is crucial.
It is.
Right after Joseph is sold off, Judah decides to separate from his brothers. He heads down, stays with a man named Hera, and ends up marrying the daughter of a Canaanite man named Shua.
Right.
They have 3 sons, Onan, and Shelah. Time passes, these boys grow up, and Judah arranges a marriage for his firstborn son,
And the bride's name is Tamar.
But the text gives us this incredibly blunt detail. It just says, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord put him to death.
Just like that.
Right. We don't get a list of his crimes, no backstory, he's just gone.
Which instantly triggers a massive legal and economic crisis.
Because of Tamar's position.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, a childless widow in the ancient Near East was arguably the most vulnerable demographic in existence.
Wow.
Without a husband or a son, a woman had virtually no economic survival rights. She couldn't just, go out and start a business or claim her dead husband's land.
Because everything was tied to the men.
Her entire identity and safety net were tied to male lineage. So when dies, the ancient cultural safety net is supposed to kick in. This is the practice known as levirate marriage.
Now, I've seen this referenced in the study notes, but it just feels so alien to our modern understanding of marriage.
Yeah.
What exactly were the rules here?
So the term levirate comes from the Latin word levir, which simply means brother-in-law.
Okay.
This was an ancient Near Eastern custom, and it was later strictly codified in the law of Moses. It dictated that if a man died without an heir, his brother was legally obligated to marry the widow.
So essentially keeping the property and the bloodline strictly in-house.
Exactly. But here's the catch. Any son born to that new union wouldn't legally belong to the biological father.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the child would carry the deceased brother's name and, most importantly, inherit the deceased brother's share of the family estate.
Got it.
This system was meticulously designed to protect the widow from starvation and to ensure a dead man's lineage wasn't completely erased from history.
So Judah tells his second son, Onan, go perform your duty as a brother-in-law to Tamar.
Right.
But Onan knows the child won't legally be his. So he goes in to sleep with Tamar, but he practices coitus interruptus. He intentionally spills his seed on the ground.
Yes.
And for a long time, I think people have read this simply as a story about sexual immorality.
That is a very common misconception, but the study Bibles point out something much, much darker here.
What's the real motive?
What Onan does is profoundly evil in its cultural context because it is rooted in absolute cutthroat greed.
Greedy.
Yes. It is essentially a hostile corporate takeover of his own family's assets.
Oh, because if has no heir.
Exactly. By refusing to give Tamar a child, Onan is ensuring that his dead brother's portion of the family inheritance defaults entirely to him.
Wow. So he gets the money, the land, the power, all of it.
Precisely. He is perfectly happy to use Tamar for his own sexual gratification, but he callously denies her the one thing.
A legal heir.
Yes, a legal heir that will secure her future and save her from destitution. It is an act of utter selfishness, weaponizing her vulnerability for his own financial gain.
That's horrifying.
It is. The text says it was evil in the sight of the Lord, so God strikes Onan down as well.
So now Judah is terrified. From his perspective, 2 of his sons have married this woman, and 2 of his sons have mysteriously dropped dead.
Right, he's not seeing their sin.
He doesn't seem to recognize his son's wickedness at all. He just looks at Tamar and sees a cursed bad omen.
He blames her.
Totally. So he makes a promise to her. He says, "Go live as a widow in your father's house until my youngest son, Shelah, grows up."
But the narrator lets us in on Judah's secret fear.
Right, he thinks Shelah will die too.
Judah has absolutely no intention of giving his last son to her.
He's lying to her face.
He is essentially washing his hands of his legal obligations. He is abandoning her to wither away in her father's house, hoping everyone just forgets about her.
Just burying the problem.
In the patriarchal system of the time, she is trapped in a legal limbo. She can't marry anyone outside the family because she is technically promised to Shelah.
But Judah, the man holding the keys to her future, has locked the door, thrown away the key, and walked off.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting. A significant amount of time passes. Judah's wife dies.
Right.
And after an extended period of mourning, Judah and his friend Hira travel up to Timnah for the sheep shearing festival.
And Tamar hears about this trip.
She does. And she also realizes something crucial. Shelah is now fully grown, and Judah has blatantly broken his promise.
She knows she's been played.
She is completely out of time and out of options. She is facing a lifetime of isolation and poverty.
This raises an important question. What do you do when the system designed to protect you is the very thing destroying you?
You take matters into your own hands.
Tamar takes a wildly dangerous, desperate gamble. She takes off the garments of her widowhood.
Which is a big deal.
Huge. These clothes were incredibly important. They visually signified her mourning, her untouchable status, and her legal binding to Judah's family.
So she's erasing that identity.
By taking them off, she is shedding her social identity. She covers herself entirely with a veil, and she sits at the entrance to Enaim, a town on the road to Timnah.
And the location matters, right?
Yeah.
The study notes mentioned Enaim means 2 eyes or 2 springs. It's a crossroads.
Yes, it's a strategic location where travelers would stop. Now, you mentioned the sheep shearing festival earlier.
Right.
We shouldn't picture a quiet agricultural chore. In the ancient world, sheep shearing was essentially a massive harvest festival.
But a big party.
It was a time of feasting, heavy drinking, and lowered inhibitions. Judah is heading into this environment, freshly out of mourning for his wife.
And he sees her sitting by the road, and because she's veiled, he assumes she is a prostitute. He walks right up to her and propositions her.
It is a stunning moment of moral failure and hypocrisy for Judah.
Unbelievable.
He had just condemned his daughter-in-law to a life of forced celibacy and isolation under the guise of protecting his family line.
And here he is.
Yet here he is, easily turning aside to sleep with an anonymous woman on the side of the road.
But Tamar treats it as a strict business transaction. She asks, "What will you give me?"
Right.
Judah says he'll send her a young goat from his flock. But Tamar knows firsthand that a promise from Judah is completely worthless.
She's not falling for that again.
So she demands a pledge, a guarantee to hold on to until the goat arrives. She asks for his seal, his cord, and his staff.
And this is the absolute crux of the structural brilliance of this narrative.
How so?
As the NAA Study Bible highlights, a man's seal, cord, and staff weren't just random decorative accessories.
They meant something.
The seal was usually a small cylinder of stone, intricately engraved with a unique pattern worn around the neck on a cord.
Okay.
In an era before written signatures were common, you would roll this seal in wet clay to authorize legal documents, finalize business deals, or issue commands.
So it's the Bronze Age equivalent of giving a roadside stranger your unlocked iPhone, your passport, and the deed to your house just because you forgot your wallet.
That is the perfect analogy.
It's an astoundingly bad decision.
It is monumentally reckless, and the staff was uniquely carved as well, serving as a secondary, highly visible form of identification.
So she has him on paper. basically.
By handing these items over, Judah is giving a total stranger undeniable, indisputable proof of his identity. He is so blinded by his immediate desires that he doesn't think about the leverage he is giving away.
He sleeps with her, leaves, and she immediately gets up, takes off the veil, puts her widow's clothes back on, and goes back to her father's house.
She has what she needs.
But here is the detail from the sources that absolutely fascinated me.
Oh, about Hira.
Yes. When Judah later sends his friend Hira back with the goat to pay the woman and retrieve his ancient ID cards, Hira doesn't ask the locals where the common street prostitute is.
This is such a brilliant textual detail. The original Hebrew uses two very distinct words here. When Judah first saw her by the road, the text says he thought she was a zona, which translates to a common street prostitute.
Okay.
But when his friend Hira goes looking for her, he asks the men of Enaim for the Kadesha.
The cultic or temple prostitute.
Exactly. The Holman study notes suggest that because Enaim was associated with two springs, it might have been a location known for Canaanite fertility rites.
So Hira isn't just looking for Tamar, he's running a PR campaign for Judah.
Yes.
He's trying to upgrade Judah's roadside scandal into a respectable religious ritual so they don't look like fools.
Exactly. It is pure spin. A zona is a lapse in moral judgment. A Kadesha could be rationalized in the broader Canaanite culture as participating in a local religious custom.
Protecting the boss.
Hira is trying to protect the powerful patriarch's ego, but the locals tell him point blank, there's never been a temple prostitute here.
Judah gets spooked when Hira reports back. He says, let her keep the stuff. We don't want to become a laughingstock.
He just wants it to go away.
He just wants to sweep his indiscretion under the rug and pretend it never happened. But 3 months later, the physical evidence of his actions can't be hidden anymore.
The reckoning arrives.
Word reaches Judah. Your daughter-in-law Tamar has acted like a prostitute, and she is pregnant.
Look closely at Judah's immediate reaction. Does he investigate? Does he ask for her side of the story?
No.
No. The patriarch of the family roars, bring her out and let her be burned.
The hypocrisy is staggering.
It is. The very man who just paid for the services of someone he assumed was a prostitute is now weaponizing his legal authority to execute a vulnerable woman for sexual immorality.
And burning, that's extreme.
The study Bibles note that death by burning was an exceptionally severe punishment in the ancient Near East, later reserved in the Mosaic Law only for the most extreme cases of depravity, like the unchastity of a priest's daughter.
He is going for the absolute maximum penalty.
He is.
He probably thinks this is the perfect solution. Tamar is permanently out of the picture, his son Shelah is safe, and the whole messy situation is neatly disposed of.
Problem solved.
So they drag Tamar out to be executed.
Yeah.
The firewood is being gathered. The whole town is watching. But Tamar doesn't scream. She doesn't panic.
She is incredibly calm.
She calmly sends a message to her father-in-law, along with 3 items. She says, I am pregnant by the man who owns these. See if you recognize whose seal and cord and staff these are.
What's fascinating here is the sheer restraint and cinematic tension of that moment.
It's like a movie scene.
Tamar could have publicly shamed him by screaming his name to the crowd, but she allows the physical evidence to do the talking. She corners him with his own legal identity.
Checkmate.
And Judah, confronted with his seal, cord, and staff, is totally trapped. He has a choice. He can lie, maintain his patriarchal power, and burn an innocent woman to protect his pride.
Or he can confess.
Or he can confess.
And to his credit, the one thing he does right in this entire story is confess. He publicly declares before everyone, she is more righteous than I, because I did not give her to my son Shelah.
It's a huge turning point.
No, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
I have to push back on this.
Okay.
Judah calls her righteous. She just disguised herself as a prostitute, slept with her father-in-law, and trapped him in an elaborate lie. How on earth do the study Bibles justify calling that righteous behavior?
That's jarring to our ears.
To a modern reader, that just sounds like survival through sheer manipulation.
It's a fantastic pushback, and it gets to the very heart of how we misunderstand ancient texts.
Okay, help me out here.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to realize that our modern mindset equates righteousness with pristine moral perfection or sinlessness.
Right, following all the rules.
We look at her deception and think she's a criminal. But in the ancient Hebrew context, righteousness, the word tzedekah, was fundamentally about fulfilling your covenantal obligations.
Oh, I see.
It was about doing right by the relationships you were bound to within your community.
So it's more about legal and relational justice than personal purity.
Precisely. Judah had completely failed his covenantal duty to Tamar. He had failed to protect her, failed to provide for her, lied to her, and abandoned her to die childless and impoverished.
He broke the social contract.
Tamar, pushed to the absolute brink by a system that discarded her, took on immense personal risk to secure the survival of the family line and to force Judah to acknowledge his legal obligations.
So she forced the system to work.
In that specific ancient legal framework, she was in the right. She upheld the family line when the patriarch himself tried to sever it.
So what does this all mean? We started this deep dive by asking why this incredibly intense, messy story abruptly interrupts the flow of Genesis right as Joseph is sold into Egypt.
Right.
If we look at the study notes, the editors point out a deliberate, striking literary contrast that the author of Genesis is making.
Chapter 38 is a mirror held up directly to chapter 39. Let's look at the architecture of the text.
Okay.
In chapter 38, Judah, the older brother, is in a position of power and freedom, yet he fails morally. He gives in immediately to sexual temptation, and he voluntarily hands over his identifying garments, his seal and cord.
The symbols of his identity.
But turn the page to chapter 39, and you see Joseph. Joseph is in a foreign land. He is a slave, stripped of all his power. He is relentlessly pursued by his master Potiphar's wife.
And he responds completely differently.
Joseph displays immense integrity. He refuses her advances, and when she physically grabs him, he leaves his garment behind in order to flee from the sin.
That contrast is brilliant. Judah compromises his identity for lust. Joseph sacrifices his garment to maintain his purity.
Exactly. The narrative is brilliantly contrasting the character of these two brothers. Remember, Judah and Joseph will become the two major pillars of the nation of Israel.
The southern kingdom of Judah and the northern tribes heavily associated with Joseph.
The text is setting up their foundational character arcs.
But the impact of chapter 38 doesn't end with just a neat literary contrast. Tamar gives birth to twins, and the birth itself is a wild story that echoes earlier Genesis themes.
It does. As Tamar is giving birth, one twin sticks his hand out. The midwife immediately ties a red thread around the wrist to mark the firstborn, because the firstborn gets the prime inheritance.
Standard practice.
But suddenly, the baby pulls his hand back in, and his brother bursts out first.
Surprise.
The midwife exclaims, "How you have broken through!" And they name him Perez, which means breaking through. Then the brother with the red thread, Zerah, is finally born.
It's just like Jacob and Esau, the younger sibling superseding the older.
It is a recurring theological motif in Genesis. God constantly subverts the human structures of power and primogeniture. The one who is supposed to be first, according to human tradition, is often bypassed.
And Perez isn't just a footnote in a weird birth story. This is where the historical shockwave hits.
Yes.
If you fast forward hundreds of years to the book of Ruth, you find Perez listed in the genealogies. Perez becomes the direct ancestor of Boaz, who's the ancestor of King David.
The greatest king of Israel.
And if you go all the way to the New Testament, to the very first chapter of the Gospel of Matthew, Perez and Tamar herself are explicitly named in the lineage of Jesus Christ.
That is the ultimate aha moment of this narrative. It completely reshapes how we view historical and theological legacy.
It changes everything.
If you are listening to this, it is so easy to fall into the trap of thinking that history, legacy, and big monumental shifts in the world are only built by perfect people operating in ideal, sanitized circumstances.
We want the pristine heroes.
We want a divine right of kings narrative where everyone behaves perfectly. But this narrative shatters that expectation.
Thoroughly shatters it.
The line of Israel's greatest king and the very lineage of the Messiah in the biblical text doesn't survive through Judah's uprightness or a pristine, glowing sequence of holy events.
Not at all.
It survives through the desperate, morally gray, incredibly brave actions of a marginalized Canaanite widow who refused to be erased by a broken patriarchal system.
It's a staggering realization. You really have to respect Tamar's sheer tenacity.
Absolutely.
She was dealt the worst possible hand by the men in her life. She was denied justice by the very person tasked with providing it, and she played the only card she had with absolute mastery.
And that leads us to a profound realization about how history is actually made. Often, the people history overlooks the vulnerable, the marginalized, those trapped by economic or social circumstances beyond their control, are the very ones moving the needle of history forward.
They are the ones changing the world.
Judah held all the systemic power, the wealth, the legal authority. Tamar had literally nothing but a veil and her wits, yet she is the one who secures the future.
Wow.
The biblical text doesn't hide the messiness of human history, it highlights it, showing that profound historical turning points often emerge from the darkest and most complex human realities.
We've covered a massive amount of ground today, from the bizarre economic realities of lavery at marriage to the power of a cylindrical seal to the staggering hypocrisy of a patriarch and the architectural brilliance of the Genesis narrative.
It's a lot to process.
It is. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over.
Let's hear it.
Consider that word Judah used, righteousness. Judah declares Tamar more righteous than himself, despite the extreme deception she used to survive.
Right.
It begs a difficult, perhaps uncomfortable question for all of us today. How often do we judge the actions, the survival tactics, or the life choices of others without fully understanding the broken systems, the broken promises, or the desperate realities that force their hand?
That's incredibly convicting.
It's incredibly easy to judge a situation from the comfort and safety of the road until you realize what it actually took for someone else to survive in the dust.
That is a powerful lens to view not just ancient history, but our world today. It forces us to look past the surface of someone's actions and ask what systemic failures pushed them to that point.
Thank you so much for exploring this incredible, complex narrative with us. We hope you walk away seeing this ancient text and perhaps the way you view survival and justice in a completely new light. Keep questioning, keep digging deeper, and God bless all listeners.